I'm Ulka Kelkar. I'm Executive Director of the Climate, Economics and Finance Program at WRI India. So the most important is to convert to renewable energy wherever possible. India has a growing demand for energy as much as possible. If it comes from non-fossil sources, it will be good, not just for the power sector, but also the way we use energy, whether it's in transport or industry or in our buildings. For industry in particular, it's important to electrify as many processes as possible. This is not always feasible, especially in small industry, which uses a lot of coal and fossil fuels directly for burning. So for small industry, energy efficiency improvement is a very powerful policy lever. So the thing with climate change is that it will bring a lot of uncertainty, a lot of erratic weather, a lot of unpredictable weather. So the more that local governments are empowered to take decisions in a very flexible way, the better it will be in this future of climate change. A lot of local action is also important in terms of making decisions about the way, say, bus transport systems are implemented or the way building codes are enforced. So local governments need to be given information about climate change. They need to be supported in ways in which they can bring in climate change considerations into the way they implement policies. And there also needs to be a lot of finance that is targeted to local governments. Usually it's not easy for state governments and city governments in India to access climate finance. This needs to be really the important action, the important emphasis going forward. So both of them go hand in hand. Policy is of course very important, not just because it encourages people to make shifts in technology, shifts in fuels, shifts in the way they, say, take public transport instead of private transport, but it also gives longer term signals to industry when it is a matter of investing in certain technologies or ways of doing things. So policy is very important, but the implementation of that policy requires finance. And right now there is a lot of hope pinned on this COP29 that is going to happen at the end of this year, because we are negotiating a new target for climate finance flows from developed countries to developing countries. But even then it will not be enough. Whatever finance that we have, whether it is from private investment or from the government's budgetary resources or from corporate social responsibility or philanthropy, all of this should become more climate friendly. Instead of acting against nature, we have to act for nature. That is the way that it can contribute to sustainable development. These are fields which are very interdisciplinary. So in a way, it doesn't even matter what degree you do or what experience you get. In almost every field, you will need to bring in a thinking about climate change. So if you're working, for example, in the hotel management industry, you can bring in more sustainable actions over there, better designed buildings and resorts, ecotourism, ways to conserve water, ways to spread awareness. If you're working in the finance industry, you can try to encourage finance and investment in climate-friendly actions rather than actions that further the use of or continue the use of fossil fuels or nature degradation. So it doesn't really matter in some sense. What really matters is that you bring in this thinking about sustainability and climate change and develop some core skills, whichever degree you want to do, whether it's law or science or economics or geography. There is a path towards working on climate change from that degree. Just be aware, don't lose hope. Climate change as a topic is always something that we always emphasize all the risks, all the dire consequences, but there's a lot to be done for action. We are still early in our journey towards climate change mitigation, and whichever field you choose, there is something that you can contribute, and individual action matters a lot. It all adds up to societal change. So that's my message to learners. It's been a very good experience. It's been very informative, learning from some of the great scientists in the country. Not only learning about the latest science in India, but also the latest international science, and tempered with a very grounded understanding of what are the challenges that are facing our country today. For example, the Indian monsoon is much harder to predict than weather in many other parts of the world. But our country, our economy, our livelihoods also depend much more heavily on the monsoons and on climate-related occupations than many other countries in the West. We've also had these recent landslides and devastating tragedy in Wayanad and devastating events in other rainfall events in other parts of the country. So I think today's symposium has been a lot about what is the science that we are part of, what are the challenges, the grounded challenges, whether it's in our cities or in our villages, and what's the action that we can take.